There's Katie. She's joining us. Hey, Katie. Katie's always here. And there's Heather. Oh, Mark, we got Kuiper. We got company. All right. Hey, Heather. All right. It is 6 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I think I've turned the recording on. Yep, it is recording. So I appreciate Heather's driving. Thank you, Heather, for joining us. Hey, where y'all heading?
We're headed home.
Oh, it's a beautiful day. I thought y'all may be heading to the park. Hey, Katie, you are darkened on my screen. So there you are. All right. Someone else is joining us. So it is 6 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. I really do appreciate you guys being on time. I hope we're not losing too many people because of the weather, but hey, that happens. Hey, Delicia. Did I get it right? Oh, okay. All right. So, everyone, let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will get started. Thank you all for turning in your stuff. You guys are really doing great with that. But we will go to the shell for 6:05 and kind of bring you up to speed of where we are. Of course, this is session 4. By my count, that means we are about a fourth of the way through the class, maybe a little bit more. So in terms of what all you should be doing, we'll talk about that. What I'm going to spend a little time talking about where you should be right now, or kind of are you pacing yourself. So looking at Blackboard, just want to remind you there's a whole bunch of things here to help you. Discussion board, that's where you'll be doing all of your assignments, and you're doing those well. I appreciate those when you turn those in. Your scenarios, that's where you'll be entering those. And the only other place will be in the task stream, is where you are entering materials for me to grade. And you've been doing pretty good about sending me materials. Looking at the schedule, we are on schedule for every night, and I'm sorry to say this, even Valentine's night. Sorry, guys, we'll try to finish a little early, 6:30, so you can spend some time with your loved one. But yes, we do have class next, and so I promise you I won't keep you long, so you can have some opportunities. Now, Gardner-Webb does celebrate its spring break between, I think it's March the 10th or so, whatever that week between sessions 8 and 9. We do have a week off. That's for Gardner-Webb spring break. And then again, we have another time down here in April, between April the 11th and the 25th, when Gardner-Webb takes, I guess that's its Easter break. You will notice that I have added something here for you guys this term. Something brand new, the first time I tried this. So I hope you like it, but I've added a final exam. Now this is, if you've just been watching your shell, you may realize this is brand new, and it is, but it is full grade, and it really is not going to keep you from doing anything. I'm not going to release it yet, but basically it's going to relate to that scenario number 5 about you doing your marketing plan. I'm going to ask you not only to do your marketing plan, but to do a little video for me, doing that plan kind of in video format. So it's a little extension of what you're doing with that final scenario 5, but it's a little bit more fun for me because I get to see you doing your presentations of marketing through a short video, marketing yourself for not only the school, but also for being principal of that school. So we'll talk about that as we get more, but I wanted you to see that because I have added it. And next Monday night, Dr. Lamb will be doing, I think you got an announcement about this, but next Monday night at 7 o'clock, the 11th, Dr. Lamb will be doing an interview session, and we will talk about some of those down here in the very last class session. But he wants to get started because he recognizes that some assistant principal positions may be opening up now and may be coming on board, so he wanted to do it a little bit earlier. So if you are free Monday night, the 11th at 7 o'clock, Dr. Lamb will be going over some interviewing techniques, some things to help you as you begin to interview for your next job, or for that first assistant principal or administrative job. All right, so there's on Blackboard. Any questions on anything we've done so far? Any problems adding anything to discussion board or anything under the scenarios? I know I've had a couple of questions about where some items were under scenarios and discussion board. I've hoped I've answered that, but if there is this mistake, because trust me, there may very well be something that's not listed here, you just let me know. But any questions so far on anything in discussion board? I will tell you that you've got a great reputation going into 605. Whoever taught you in 604, was that Dr. Sanders? Just to nod your head, Dr. Sanders? No? No one, okay. All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good, good. All right, so tonight we're going to be on class session 4, and we have 2 big topics that I want to go over with you. And the first has to do with teacher turnover. I put a new article here. This is brand new, these 2 items, the North Carolina teacher turnover article and the turnover stats. I want to look at those, and then we want to talk a little bit about what makes a great principal as you start working on session 4. Now, this job readiness skill outcome, you saw that. You probably have already clicked on it. It is a wonderful profile. The other thing that was here, the link was broken or something, so I had to take it down. But if I can find the correct way to get into it, I'll do that. But it's now, I didn't want to put something out there that you all couldn't have access to. But this particular article talks about, and this from the Work Go, again, some of the things that will help you as you begin to interview for that next administrative or that first administrative position. These are also skills that have been researched by a national business organization, so utilize them. These are kind of some good things to help you when you go for that interview. But again, I want to encourage you to stick around for next Monday night when Dr. Lamb will be going over some of the material as well. Some very specific interview questions. Now, before I get going, I want to show you this. This is an interesting article that came out on February the 4th. And it was put out by the North Carolina School, by the News and Observer, I'm sorry, in Raleigh. And it was about fewer teachers leaving the North Carolina schools. And I don't know if you had a chance to read the article or not, but there's some interesting material in here. But the reason I put this here was not necessarily for the great video, but I wanted you to see the report itself. If you flip down, I think a couple to maybe the second page, you will actually have access to the you'll have access to the draft report that was presented to the General Assembly. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those, but it was due on the 15th, but there's a draft out there being presented by the State Board of Education. But if you ever get a moment and you wonder how's your district or how's your school doing, your high schools in your district doing with all your schools with their teacher retention rate, this is a very comprehensive article. And it talks about why teachers are leaving the classroom. And if you start doing any kind of work, when you start working on your dissertation and you decide for your doctorate, you decide that you want to talk about or write about teacher retention rates or teacher preparation programs, this is a really great resource for you. So it's going to be there. It's current, is up to date, as this is last year's statistics on the teacher turnover rate. It'll break it down by the LEAs. It'll break it down by the reason in which people are leaving the profession. Now, this is just for North Carolina. I'm sure South Carolina has something similar. I just don't have access to that report yet. But if you want to go and look at how your district is doing, I mean, it really breaks it down school by school. And if it's not school by school, it'll give you a link to your county, because your county should be listing its reports. So here's the beginning of the county reports. And let's see, I know Piper, he and I talked before we came on board, and he is in Cumberland County. And so just simply go to Cumberland County, and you can see that they had a total, that's Columbus, of 3,338 teachers. They had 373 leave the profession, and then it breaks it down to the reasons, personal reasons, or initiated by the LEA. Wow. Or beyond the control of the LEA, and other reasons. So you can actually see how well your district is doing and how they compare to other districts in the state. It's a great report. So I encourage you to look at that. But I want to talk about it briefly, but I really want to show you the second piece that I have here. And this is a little bit more about some of the statistics. This is a little bit more concise, where the North Carolina Policy Watch has gone through and broken down the numbers, because there's a couple of them here I really do want to call your attention to. So instead of reading the full report, this is the statewide report for North Carolina. So interesting pieces of information here I hope you find useful. that as of March, there were almost 95,000 teachers employed in the state of North Carolina. And of that number, 7,674 left the profession last year. They are no longer employed in public schools, which also includes the charter schools. And that means that there is an 8.09% attrition rate for North Carolina public school teachers. So 8.09% of our teachers are leaving the profession last year. Now, and that's good, because the year before it was 8.70. So actually the percentage has gone down. If you consider that good, that's still a little high for the state of North Carolina. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because I think you'll discover, if you haven't already, that finding teachers is becoming harder and harder and harder. But here's what I want to call your attention to. So this is the new rate, 8.09 last year percent of our teachers are leaving the profession, which means 91% are staying. The year before it was 8.7, so we're improving. But look at this, folks. This is what really bothers me and scares me about this statistic. If you will look at the number of beginning teachers we had in the state, or BTs, almost 16 or 15,500 of them. Look at the attrition rate for them, almost 12.35. That means that those folks, those brand new teachers who are coming into our building, those folks are leaving at almost, 4% higher rate than the normal population, or in general, the population. So what that tells me is that our beginning teachers are the ones who are leaving us earlier. They're the ones who are really moving out of the profession. And it's even more scary when you consider that 8.09, if you take out the number of teachers who have retired, which is somewhere we'll see that, but if you take out that number, then it almost, the percentage almost goes down to about 5 point something. And compared to a 12.34% of our brand new beginning teachers leaving. So that's scary, because that means that we don't have 12.34% of new people to fill those vacancies. So as a principal or as an assistant principal, a huge part of your job will be finding ways to keep and support our new teachers in the profession, because we can't lose them. We can't keep losing them at that particular rate. If we do, at some point, we really are going to have we already have a serious problem. So that's going to be one of the major priorities of you as an administrator when you get that school, is to look at your retention rate and find out what you can do to build support. And so we'll talk a little bit more about what makes teachers want to stay, but that's your job one when you get there. Some other things to look at. So, by the way, these are the number of this 15,595% of the teachers. That is 16% of our teaching force is brand new, 16%. All right, when you go down here though, when you look at the number of lateral entry teachers, which is 5,636, that's the number, which is about 6% of our teaching force, which is continually growing. And that's going to be a problem too, as we have to grow that more and more. But a lateral entry teacher even has to do more things, of course, than a beginning teacher does. And when you look at the lateral entry teachers, not dropout rate, but the ones who are leaving us, that's another big hole. 15% of our lateral entry teachers are no longer employed in the public school systems. So we're losing the professional certified teachers at a high rate of 12.3%, but we're also losing our lateral entry teachers at a 15.5% rate. Not a good thing for us. And I know lateral entry teachers can be phenomenal, but they require a lot more training. They're going to require a lot more attention from you. And when you get your principalship, you're going to have lateral entry teachers in your building. I read today an article that says we're even having trouble now getting elementary teachers. We never in this state had trouble getting elementary teachers unless it was an exceptional children's elementary teacher. So they are not coming. They're not coming out of the colleges. The other thing I want to call your attention to is this number, this percent, 53.9% of the teachers cited personal reasons. So well over half of the teachers who left did not leave because they were retiring, did not leave because they were going to go out of state to work in another school system. They left for personal reasons. Personal reasons could be they don't want to teach, they had a bad experience, they're going to go work in the private sector, you name it. But those are folks who are leaving us, and we can't afford to have that kind of number of people leaving the profession. It's very scary. And it's what you're going to inherit when you become a principal. It's going to be job one for you when you walk into your building to determine whether or not you have all your staff in place and how you keep them in place, the good ones in place. The other thing I want to call attention to this, 21.5% retired with full benefits. That's a high, that's a 21%, of course. 12.3% left the North Carolina schools for family reasons. Those may go to teach in another area. The district in North Carolina with the highest rate of teachers leaving was Warren County. Anybody know where Warren County is? It is in the northeast, kind of northeast North Carolina, right above. It's between Roanoke Rapids and right above Raleigh, a little bit north of Raleigh. But anyway, it's a very poor rural district, and they have a very hard time getting classroom teachers, so they had the highest. Northampton, which was right next to it, also had a very high rate of 25%. Wake County had a 10.3. Charlotte Meck had a 12.5. So what I want you to take away from this, two things. One is we have a serious problem coming in North Carolina, and that's with teachers, our teacher supply. We are not going to have enough teachers to man our classrooms. Our colleges and universities are not turning out the number of teachers we need. And so the best way to fix this, there are two ways. One is to grow your own, and that means you're a teacher assistants. And when you get that elementary school or that middle school, you need to identify some of your high-flying teacher assistants and other people who really have a knack for working with kids, and you need to be pushing them toward College of Educations. I'm going to put in a little plug for Gardner-Webb. If you live in any area around Gardner-Webb, we're going to be doing a program this fall where we're going to be having teacher assistants come in and put them on a fast track to become classroom teachers. But I don't know that's just for us around here in this particular area of the state. But other colleges are doing it too. So when you get into your building, look for your in-house people who may make great teachers and encourage them and build some kind of support for them to do that as well, whether it's time off, or whether it's some financial support from your district, help them find ways to do that. Also, the other big piece of that too is really work hard on retaining your good people. When a good teacher comes to you and tells you they're leaving because they've had it, try to find ways to help that new teacher, help that teacher become successful. Concentrate on your new teachers and your lateral entry teachers because they're leaving us in droves. All right, so your first job when you get that principalship is to check out your personnel and to make sure that you have all the people you need. Chances are, and also reach out to your district about some of the ways in which they work with new teachers and lateral entry teachers. All right, now, before I talk about the next topic I want to share with you, I do want to call your attention to next week. And by the way, if you're a little late coming on board, I did mention that we do have class next week. And I know it's Valentine's Day and your husband or wife is not going to be too thrilled with you looking at the TV screen, but I hope some of you will join me. We'll try to make it quick. But in week 5, there is an assignment for you to interview an assistant principal. It could be the assistant principal in your building, or it could be an assistant principal that you know and you feel comfortable talking to. And so here's the kind of the guidelines, and this is in week 5. So if you want to go and kind of look at what your format when you have this interview with an assistant principal, what it should kind of be. Here's basically, there are 14 questions that we ask that you ask them. And the best way to do this is just to indent some space here and put down their responses. The whole purpose behind this activity is to get you to one, interact with that assistant principal, that administrator, but the other is to begin to understand kind of the wrong perceptions about assistant principals. So it's real easy. If you want to ask some other things and add the numbers, feel free to go ahead. Try not to leave out any one of these questions and just record the responses. You don't have to tell me who you are interviewing with. You can just say my assistant principal. You can say Mr. Smith or whatever. I don't need to know many details about who you are. It would be helpful if you'll tell me what grade level they're in. The assistant principal is an elementary assistant principal or a middle school principal, because that will have some variance on some of their responses. So these are the 14 questions, and just fill in the blank and turn it back in. This is under the discussion board heading. Any questions on this? Because this is your big project for this coming week, among the many others that we have for you.
Where do we put it at under discussion board? Like, is there an upload button?
Hang on, let me get to that. It's under, again, yours is a little different, so somebody could maybe go to it and see. It's discussion board. It's right after discussion board 8, but I don't, from my end, I don't know how to, I don't have the ability to plug it in. So can someone look at that? And is it like all the other discussion boards? You just simply download an attachment?
Create the thread.
I'm sorry?
Create the thread.
Create the thread?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see where you could upload it.
You just browse your computer. And
Okay, I see it. I see it down there.
Yeah, create the thread.
With the link, you can push the link on there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you, Heather. But mine does do that, so that's good to know. All right. So any questions on that? Have a good experience with it. And kind of, if you want to, next week, maybe we can talk about some of your aha moments with them too. Is this what you thought the assistant principal was going to say? Is this kind of, there's been some aha moments in the past. All right. So let's look at our topic tonight. What makes a great principal? I am opening it up for you, so you should be able to read it since it's a PowerPoint. And this is a part where I hope that you will join in with me. This was an article put together by the teacher, the North Carolina Teacher of the Year, I think she was last year or the year before, and she was asked to do a presentation on what makes a great principal. And so I borrowed from her, and she says there really are 9 characteristics that she has discovered in a great principal. And as we go through this, what I really, really, really would like to have is I'm going to ask, do you have examples, specific examples of someone who exemplifies this that's been in your experience? You don't need to tell me the name of the principal or the assistant principal, but you'll be surprised. I mean, you'll see the 9 easy steps. This is by Cindy Grigsby. She was a finalist for the National Teacher of the Year, but she was from Orange County, which is Hillsborough, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And this is her renditions of the 9 things that make for a great principal. And here's her summary quote: "Our principal makes us want to be a better teacher." All right, number 1. So again, these are things that you're going to need to be when this is what your staff, this is what teachers have told this Teacher of the Year as she traveled across the state of North Carolina. And she was asking, what makes a great administrator? What makes a great principal? And this is what she got back, and she put it down into 9 things. So when you step into that principal's office, your staff ought to be able to say all of these things with you. Number 1, the school is a family. And I'm not reading it to you, but there's some basic components. Everybody feels connected. No one feels that they're left out. They don't feel as if someone has favorites. Have you ever worked in a school? You don't have to say, but have you ever worked in a school where there obviously are favorites? It is demoralizing. It doesn't feel right. But it's an air of connectiveness. It's a community of caring, and they feel at home in the building. The community feels as well, and there are frequent celebrations. So this is, the school is a family. And you know, sometimes I hear this, oh, we're just one big family here. But if your family's like mine, it's not all one big happy group all the time. We have conflicts, and we have, like my brothers, I don't like them. So that is probably what you need to look at is your sense of family. Maybe we need to change this to a functioning family, or a good family, or a family that gets along, because there are many, many different definitions of family out there. But what I think she's saying here is the family that kind of looks after each other, has a sense of caring and loving and celebration. So who wants to share what one of your principals that really, what did your school, or what did he or she do that really made this stand front and center? Any examples of somebody you've worked for that really has made your school feel like a functioning, good family? Anybody? No examples? Come on, you've had a principal like that. I hope.
I'll speak on my experience.
Okay, Piper.
At the elementary school I worked at for 8 years. Just basically everything I'm reading within this first slide is exactly what we experienced on a daily basis. She involved everyone. She gave everyone responsibilities, and the school was just a well-oiled machine. The community was a huge part. We had a lot of support, so we were a very high-functioning family. That obviously we did have our, times of discomfort and chaos, but it was a family.
Did you have kumbaya moments or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We celebrated the highs, we celebrated the lows. I mean, we did it all, and I'm very thankful for that experience.
And lessons learned when you move forward to your own building. You have a great base of support, of understanding how it made you feel as the teacher. So it's something that you'd want to take forward as an administrator.
Right.
Thank you, Piper. Number 2, and I know all of you have worked in buildings like this, where the teachers are professionals, where you let them teach, or the principal lets them teach. They don't micromanage, they respect, they give flexibility, and they and also you can tell these people were great teachers themselves, because they never have forgotten what it's like to have been in the classroom and to have been a classroom teacher. Now, every one of you have had wonderful principals that treated you like professionals, right? Good example, anybody? What did it look like? What does it look like to be treated like a professional? Other than maybe some of these things here. What?
I can speak to that.
Go ahead, Julia.
I would say that one thing that my current principal has done, and I'll speak to my specific self, is that he trusts in my ideas, no matter how kind of far-fetched they may seem. So for example, I had this grand idea to take my Math 1 students to the university and work in the UNCA STEAM studio. And we were going to do this massive project and create this big art piece that we were going to install inside the building. And I told him exactly where I thought it would look good and how I wanted it to work, and that it would be a great experience for the students and they would get to work with college professors. And I just kind of like ran the idea by him, and he was like, I trust in everything you're saying. Keep me informed. And he was there with me every step of the way. And it was incredibly successful. And the amount of growth that my kids showed after that project was completed, I think was the proof in the pudding, for lack of better words.
Excellent. And evidently that principal has been a teacher, a great teacher somewhere down the way.
Yes, that principal is actually the one who told me that I need to become an administrator.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Again, good role model. Number 3. Now I know in North Carolina, and for those of you who may be from South Carolina too, we're all about data, and we're all about using data, and great principals understand it. But they also, here's the difference between using data. Great principals understand that data is so important, and they also know that you as a classroom teacher, or your classroom teachers, are going to get bombarded with data, and the push to use data and to interpret it. So a great principal understands that there can be such a thing as too much, that you can just bombard people with too much stuff and then really lose sight of the fact that you really need to narrow your focus. So disaggregate the data, understand that people have the big picture, but they also understand those small pictures as well. When you disaggregate, you break down the data and look at different subgroups. And it's important that you do that so you can learn from the ones who have best practice. So It also leads to some really great professional development opportunities for your teachers. And it also celebrates academic achievement when that data has been successfully done. And because I know all of you have a great principal who uses data and makes you use it, I do hope they go the next step, and that is to give you a chance to not overwhelm you, but to say, this is what's important. Here's how you interpret it. Go forth, do great things with the data. All right, so number 4. I know all of you got great stories on that one, because I know you love data. Number 4, they are student-centered. And here's the key to this. When you become that elementary principal, Piper, or any of you become a principal, the best thing you can do is to know your students. I will tell you a personal story. When I was an elementary principal before I became a superintendent. And I was at an elementary school with about 700 students. In Raleigh, was a pretty affluent area. But it was not all affluent. But the best thing that I ever heard parents say, and when I left there, they gave me a little roast or a little kind of going away thing. But the one thing that really stood out in their mind was that I knew the names of the kids. Now, in 700 kids, I will almost guarantee you I did not know all the names of the kids. And I doubt you're going to know the names of all your 700 kids, or 200 or 300. You might at 200. But it is important that they feel like you know them. And it's not just knowing that, and eventually you will begin to know a lot of names, but it is that opportunity to interact with them. And one of the other things, and this is where the student-centered comes in, and I think I was an okay principal, elementary principal, I loved it, was the thing that they commented on the most was that you could count on rain, shine, snow, sleet, whatever, that I was going to be standing out there in the morning, opening those doors for those kids, saying good morning with a happy sunshine, no matter how bad I felt. I was standing out there and I'm saying good morning, not only to the student, but I would look into the car and say, have a great day, Mom. We'll see you this afternoon, or don't forget our PTA meeting next week. And eventually, and in the afternoon, because that's when you start calling names, you will begin to understand and know who your kids are. And yes, there'll be a few that you don't, but that sends a powerful message to a parent when you know their kid's name, or you may know their name. And I'm not talking about the mom that's PTA president. You will know her for sure. She will be there all the time. But if you know the name of that very shy mom who drops her child off and who really comes minimally to the school, or who walks their child to school, you're going to make a great impression. And I'll tell you where this comes back to give you the good benefit is when you have to sit across from that parent at an unpleasant conference. And you have to say, your child did this, and I'm going to have to do this because of the policy. That's an unpleasant conversation, but that parent is going to understand and be supportive of you, versus if you've never had any contact with them. So, great principals, and I do want some stories on this one. Great principals, they know their kids, they know their families. If you're in a high school, you know that Johnny plays on the basketball team. You know that Susie is on the volleyball and Steve is on the wrestling team in the 150 class. You know those things. You know them somewhat because you are very actively involved in their lives, not only at school, but around the building. And one of the things when you become a principal, you should make sure you tell your staff in every one of your staff meetings that if you have a child that has some major accomplishment or something big that's a big step for them, and it could be a child that's exceptional that makes a big step or a big jump, you make sure that teacher tells you about it at the end of the day. So the next day you can make a beeline and happen to be there when Johnny comes out, so you can say, way to go. Give him the high five, give him the bump or whatever. Kids will love you, even in high school and middle school, if you take a personal interest in their lives. All right, who wants to share some of those great administrators who do this well? Because I know you've got some great principals who do this. Share.
Well, I have two that came to my mind. One of them was one of my principals that I had when I was a student. I was a teacher in CMS. Not a teacher, but a student in CMS. And now I'm a teacher in CMS. And so when I made it to like the teacher of the year, top 9, my old principal actually came to the ceremony.
Oh.
It shocked me so much. And she still remembered my name and everything. So that was really phenomenal that 13, 14, probably 18 years later, she still remembered who I was. And then I also have another experience where there's a principal who every morning, like you said, she would be out there in the main foyer to greet the kids when they came through. And that was actually like her first year there when she decided to start doing that. But it was a good way for her to meet the parents and meet the kids and start establishing those relationships.
And, I'll tell you too, the very fact that that principal in Charlotte Meck is a huge, huge school system. So the very fact that that principal was kept up with you, that speaks volumes too in such a large district like that. That's kind of hard to do. Anyone else have an awesome story about one of your principals? One you're working for now or one you had? I need one more awesome story.
I was just going to say, my first principal that I had, he was really good about reaching out to all different kinds of students. So, of course, students who he saw often for behaviors, he would try to find their talents and give them special tasks or jobs or just check in with them a lot. But he was always in classrooms, just having conversations with kids and reading books to them that he knew they liked. And it was just really cool to see him interact with not only students who definitely needed him to be there, but all kinds of students who just appreciated just seeing him and laughing with him. He always told them jokes. That was really cool to see.
I was. And when you are and particularly if you go to an elementary, folks, you have probably more opportunities than most to really become that, because principals in an elementary school or assistant principal, you guys take on a God-like figure when you walk down the hall. I mean, the kids just, because you're taller, but also because you're an adult that's not their parent or their guardian who actually takes an interest in them and shows them love. So elementary, it is so easy. You can't help it. Middle school, you're going to find out little quirky things that makes the kids operate. They're into humor. You got to be careful with that one. They're into it's interesting you'll find, and someone from middle school, you'll find very quickly that they need it just as much as the elementary. Not as easy to show it, and you got to dig a little deeper. And in high school, sometimes they appear that they don't want you to be involved in their life, but they really do. All right. So that's number 4. She discovered that number 5 was that these successful great principals really do reach out to families, and it's including families in the community of the school. And it goes beyond having a PTA council. It goes beyond bake sales, open houses, and things like that. It really does go into that contact, whether it's a personal contact or whether it's a communication of some other way, but how they interact with the whole family. They may know that, like in that carpool line for that elementary, that kindergarten getting out of the car, you may see his little brother sitting back there and know he's a year or two away from school. And you're turning around and say, "Hey, Dalton, looking forward to seeing you in 2 years, buddy." That's the kind of the contact too. So involve the families, reach out to the families and make them feel special. Now I have to say something here. This example they give of visiting all the rising freshmen before they go into the high school, that's a great example of going beyond and above and beyond. But I also want to encourage you to go above and beyond the families that you feel comfortable with. If you're in a school and there are families that don't, moms and dads who never darken your door, they have every right to expect that you're going to reach out to them as you would that PTA mom. So you're going to have to find opportunities to reach out to those reluctant families, those families who are very intimidated by the school. Because for many of your parents of the school that you'll get, they have unpleasant memories of school. They did not have a successful school life. They did not enjoy, and remember how things have changed for many parents. They did not enjoy the way we do relationships now with students. A trip to the school oftentimes was an unpleasant experience. So there are a lot of people out there who have school phobia. Now those parents are also the ones that you need to bring on board and reach out to. And sometimes it takes a little extra to reach out to them. You cannot just reach out to PTA moms. They will worry you to death. Reach out to the other moms, the other dads too, the grandmas and everyone else, because every child that goes to your school, you should be reaching out to their families, even the ones who don't want you to. You've got to. That makes them feel special, because you want to break that cycle of people feeling uncomfortable with us in the schoolhouse. People feel very uncomfortable speaking to a school administrator. There's something about entering that principal's office and sitting in that chair across from a desk with the principal that is very intimidating. It could be the nicest principal in the world. But that's something we've got to do. We've got to help people with their school phobia. Anybody have a good example of a principal that does something above and beyond to reach out to families? One example.
At my school, we're all required to make 15 positive contacts a month. And so we have to call, either we can call them, email them, send them a letter or a postcard, or if we see them at a ball game or at homework diners or some other event, we are required to make 15 positive contacts a month, every single one of us.
Oh, that's nice. I bet parents like that.
Yeah, they seem to. Actually, it's kind of interesting because when you call them, they're always ambivalent as to why you're calling them because typically a phone call from the school is something's wrong.
Yeah.
We've been doing this, I think this is our third year because we are also a community school and they're becoming more and more used to it. And especially with parents who continually come to like the homework diners, they're used to teachers checking in, asking how things are going, you know, how things are going, not just with their students and their students' academics, but just like other aspects of their lives.
And that's great. That builds that relationship. Excellent. All right. Number 6. Oh my gosh. Have you seen that principal who just has no end of energy? They're everywhere. They do everything. That's what makes a good administrator. And for you all who are going to go into the elementary level, don't think that you're going to be getting out of ball games and things like that, because you'll still be having activities. And you should still connect with the children in the middle school and high school, their brothers and sisters. If you are in a community school, then there's probably there's a community elementary, community high, community middle. So be involved in all of that. So they have great energy. These people go in all the time, like the Energizer Bunny. Number 7, they promote school spirit and teamwork. This is the morning, through the morning announcements where they, you're constantly being bombarded with, oh my God, we love to be here. This is a great place to work. And it's a sincereness and it's a sincere appreciation for everybody there. So it's a lot of pride. And I know you have principals who do this tremendously well. They just have a lot of pride. They are the ones who wear that on dress down Friday. They're the ones who wear the school jersey, or they may encourage things like that, school spirit. And again, it's just not high schools and middle schools. Elementary schools are really into this as well. But they really promote that we're all a big team here. And that's why, as corny as it may be, that's why at the beginning of school, when you get your t-shirt, it says Southwest Elementary School, we rock. And they want you to wear it every Friday. Well, I would dare say you probably got a principal who's just really, really into that teamsmanship and that building of family. So they do a lot of promoting of spirit and teamsmanship with not just the staff, but with the students as well. Number 8, an important one, and I heard someone mention this. I'm not exactly sure who. Maybe it was it you, Julia? All right. So they develop leaders. So great principals, of course, are always on the lookout for finding the next school leaders in their building. And not only are they on the lookout for them, but they're giving them opportunities. You may think it's an opportunity to do bus duty, may not be, or an opportunity to sit in on a parent conference, or an opportunity to sit in on a budget session as why. But it's because that principal has identified and used some good traits. Because remember, great principals are great teachers. And so a great principal is looking for other great teachers to become great principals. You just don't want to share that. And you also serve as a mentor. And you provide opportunities for that person to really begin to experience some of the things of being a principal. And it's not just the bad things, it's the good things as well. That's number 8. And Julia is a prime example of that. Number 9, they also have good help. They understand that they cannot do it alone, and they encourage teams. They encourage distributive leadership, and they encourage everyone to be a part of that team. They also take care of themselves, and they encourage you to take care of yourself. One of my principals I remember when I was in high school was an avid runner. And needless to say, that man was out there at the end of the school running every day as a model to the rest of us. I mean, he'd get out there with the track team and he would run, but he was also taking good care of his health. And even before we became a very health conscious country, he was always pushing that. They also take care of themselves and others. So they have really, really good health. All right, those are the 9 characteristics that if you have all 9 of them, I would hire you tomorrow in Caldwell County. I would Wake County or any of the districts would hire you. And the thing about it is, if you have all 9 of these traits, you need to make sure you sell them yourself in your interview. So when you go for an interview, I would have looked over these 9 traits again, and I would make sure somewhere in your questions you work in some of these things, because that's the personal touch that we look for when we hire principals, or we look for when we hire administrators. All right, any questions on that? I have one more thing to talk with you about, and then we are done for the night, and you all can, I just also want to remind you that if you missed the session, this isn't the Zoom session, this is last semester's, but I will be putting a link here. There was a great article in talking about leadership that if you haven't had a chance to read, it is opened. Creating effective leaders through situational leadership. A great article. I wouldn't read all of it. I just pick through and read the parts that you want, but it does relate well to the topic. All right, next week, Valentine's Day, we're going to be looking at the administrative interview. We're also going to, a couple other things, this is all under next week. There's a great resource for North Carolina teachers for free online resources. Look at those. A couple of other great articles. And we'll be talking about the role of assistant principal and what an assistant principal does. So if you've done your interview, come prepared to talk about some of the great things your assistant principal is doing. Any questions for the good of the group? All right, well, I am going to stick around, but you are free to go. I usually do this at the end of every session in case you have something specific you want to ask me or a unique something. I'll stick around until all of you are gone, but if not, I'll see you on Happy Valentine's Day and tell your hubby and your loved one that I'm sorry, but we have to get in our 15 sessions. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
I have a question.
Okay, let me stop recording because I don't usually record